everybody, and welcome to What's the Story podcast. This is WTS 323. My name is Danny Murray.
And I am Graham Merrigan.
What was there? A delay in the line from Cork to Dublin there, was there?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, when you first logged
man.
on, I thought you had a renovation in your bedroom, but no, you're in a hotel because of work.
It's not a bad decor, to be fair to
I
him.
wonder if Gary Mack would like that decor.
Do you know what? Actually, I should send. Normally, if I'm in a hotel, I'd do a little. In fairness, I always do. If any of us we send a little video in or a little photo in to kind of show. So I will. I'll send it in and ask Gary. It's a very
boxy,
dark.
Is it?
It is, yeah. Like the rooms aren't. They're not small, but they're not huge. It's just very bog standard.
What's the color of the wall behind the bed?
Yeah, I would call that now. I'd say it's a very brown maroon. It's not brown, but it's not like wine. So I'm going for a browny maroon. So
I would love after we do this pod that you send in some vision into the WhatsApp group, and I'd love Gary Mackle's opinion on the decor.
I will.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd be a fan of it. Now, I'm not a fan of the carpet. I think the carpet is the one thing that lets the decor down in here.
Right.
But it's lovely.
It's very boxy, is it?
No, I think it's just the angle. It's kind of all right. Like that's actually a window. The curtains are pulled.
Oh, very
there
good.
you go.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Lovely. Well done, Danny.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know what I'm getting well done for, but thank you. So this is 323. I'm exasperated, Mero. The world has me worn down, and there's just a lot of madness out there. And one of the things that's absolutely mad is Sean P. Diddy Combs.
Yeah. Well, when you brought this up to me, 2-3 months ago, I wasn't aware of any of it. But I said to you, it'd make for a good podcast if we knew somebody who knew what they were talking about regarding the whole Sean Combs case. So I waited. I didn't look into it. I knew the content of it. I knew the seriousness of it. I just didn't know the finer details until we did this podcast. And we recorded a great interview earlier on. Our guest is from the Creep Dive podcast. She also is a great contributor to Ireland AM. Feels like every morning, but it's not every morning. But she's great with pop culture and all the rest. Where our guest now is the lovely Cassie Delaney. Cassie, you're from the Creep Dive podcast, as I explained in the intro. For people, new listeners now to you, Cassie, you tell tales of creeps, lawyers, hokers from the depths of the web. Explain more about the Creep Dive to us just briefly.
Yes, so the Creep Dive has been going now for about 6 years. And what we do is take those like little tidbits of stories you'd hear on the internet and go a lot deeper on them. It started as a combination of two things. So I used to work with Sophie White. We're really good friends. And she came to me and wanted to do a podcast on the weird and wonderful side of the internet and just like stuff you'd find in Reddit or forums. She does a great deep dive into hobby forums and the drama that comes from them. One of her greatest stories is a community fight over a clam chowder support group. And I, at the same time, had wanted to do a podcast on the kind of what became of, like following up on what became on the contestants from the Swan, what became of just different things that we would have had like cultural touch points when we were growing up that maybe completely forgot about. But we combined the two and the Creep Dive was born, and we brought Jen, and Jen is a great friend of Sophie's, and they were doing Mother Pod together, and she heard about it and was like, I have to get involved in that. It's the kind of shit that you would send into your WhatsApp group being like, what the hell is this? Or have you seen that? But we get an hour and a half out of it twice a week and then do live shows about it. So it could be anything and everything.
I love the name of it. And I love there's a chowder support group.
The story is mad. It derails in a way that is Netflix documentary worthy. And like the thing is with the Creep Dive, we've often done stories that then, not because of our influence, but that are then Netflix documentaries like that killer, stalker, lover, whatever we had covered that in the Creep Dive years before it came out.
Well,
So we're kind of in that. We get sent in a lot of stuff, but we know where to go to find it now as well, which is brilliant. Have done all sorts of strange things. There's a story called Don't Give Granny a Ouija Board about a grandmother who thinks she's possessed by spirits and goes downstairs after doing a Ouija board and kills her family. But we kind of it's not that we make light of them. We tell them with a sprinkling of very glib humor.
I'm sorry. I have to, sorry.
Yeah, that's not even the strangest one. Don't give Granny a
not
Ouija
even the
board.
strangest one.
Not
Love
at
it.
all.
Right,
Like just this week.
Sorry,
Go on.
full disclosure, right? I'm milling a pizza, and you were saying that, and I'm trying not to spit pizza out at the screen and laughing
Being
at
very
that.
demure.
Yeah.
Very mindful, very cutesy.
Yeah.
So this elderly lady done a Ouija board.
Up in her
Well-
attic, right? Literally up in the attic, got contacted by the spirits, got a message through on the Ouija board. This is her defense. Walked downstairs and killed her son-in-law. I think killed a couple of other people in the family as well. We did that one a few years ago. Walked downstairs and killed her son-in-law. And then like just this week, we were telling a story about in 2015, this fella went viral for writing messages on the mirrors in his bedroom about how much he loved his wife, right? It was like 21 reasons I love my wife. Pure peak 2015 internet kind of shit. Like you could see it going viral on BuzzFeed, the her.e's, the joe.e's of this world. Like they would have been weak for that kind of stuff. Little image popped up in Imgur and he was a viral sensation, right? Anyway, no, that story was in 2015. It was everywhere. It was plastered. He was dubbed America's kindest boyfriend. No more than 2 years later, the man had murdered his wife, but nobody knew that as a follow-up. So we were going deep on that story earlier on, and it was in the papers recently because he had kidnapped and held a 16-year-old girl hostage. So that's what became of the internet's kindest boyfriend.
This is
Fucking hell.
These are the stories people need in their lives. Like, let's be honest, this is the kind of, as you said,
fully agree.
It is WhatsApp fodder, but it's the exact fodder that you love of like a Saturday or Sunday morning, and it takes you away from the endless doom scrolling of Elon Musk's cesspit and gives you something to go, what the fuck am I reading? This is bad.
What we do, I think, and what I love to do are those. I'm obviously I do a lot of pop culture commentary and I do a lot of showbiz, but I think where pop culture meets culture and society is where I really thrive. And it's because a lot of pop culture and the phenomenon that we see go viral and internet culture is systemic of where we are politically and culturally as a whole. And that's probably why I spend too much time reading into things and going deep on things and like trying to understand the psychology of stuff. It's far more interesting than just like it's not like gossipy kind of stuff, but maybe that's me justifying rolling around the internet getting paid to talk about showbiz all the time.
Listen, we all love a bit of salacious gossip and all that, right? And we're gonna jump into that in a second. But have you ever done a Ouija board? Just to go back to what is now my favorite old woman ever.
Never would. I never would. It creeps me out too much.
Really?
Like, I sometimes get scared when we're doing the creep dive. No, don't fuck with that. Like, do you know? You've never heard the story of a Ouija board ended well. Like no one's ever done a Ouija board and been like, oh, it gave me really good guidance and I, got a job interview after it. Like it is always about spirits coming and fucking shit up. Don't bring that in.
So I only done one once, and I was as part of when we were in college. We were college radio station thing. We went to one of these like most haunted places in Ireland, and they decided to do a Ouija board.
Did you bring Derek Accorda with you?
We didn't. No, I can't remember the name. I think
he features regularly on the creep dive.
As he should, as he should. But I can't remember the name of the paranormal group that like were doing this for us, right? But they brought us in and they were giving us the whole spiel, and it's this house in Laois that's haunted. It's like one of the most known haunted places in Ireland, and apparently a little girl was murdered there, and it's for a spirit that wanders the house and all that kind of stuff. So they broke out the Ouija board after giving us all the spiel, and this happened in like the 17 or 1800s, say, and they're asking questions, and the Ouija board is spelling stuff out absolutely fucking perfectly. And I wasn't trying to ruin it or anything, but I genuinely just went, this was a little girl. How's her spelling so good? And also, have you ever encountered a dyslexic ghost? And with that, the little glass from the Ouija board shot and smashed against the wall. And I was politely asked to leave. And from that moment on, I just kind of went, I think Ouija boards are they're a bit of
They're
a,
bullshit.
A bit of a
really,
con.
aren't they?
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
like I just kind of, I was like, I was into this until, well, so when you were saying don't bring that, I'm kind of like, I mean, if their spelling is perfect, something's not right. I mean,
That's true. It's a
I
very
don't
good
think all
point.
ghosts can spell is essentially the message I'm getting out there.
And
Yeah.
I'd say there was a high level of illiteracy in the 1700s as well, you know?
Yeah, this is it. So
Absolutely. I
so
don't think I've ever done one. I remember the lads when we were growing
would you
up
do one?
attended. If the two of yous wanted me to do one, I'd do one.
I want you to do one. Cassie, peer pressure him. He doesn't respond well to her.
look, yeah, the next time the three of us are together, lads, we'll do a Ouija board.
And we get Aoife to do it with us as well.
But nobody needs that. Like, imagine giving her something else to yap to. Jesus fucking Christ. You open up another dimension for Aoife Moore to speak to, she'll never shut the fuck up. She's bad enough with the living.
Friend of the show and journalist extraordinaire, Aoife Moore. Sorry, I brought us away from where that conversation was naturally flowing just to talk about Ouija because I'm fascinated by them. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing.
From one creep to the next creep.
Fucking
Yeah.
hell, what a crime, Merrigan. What a fucking segue, man.
Well, we
Segue
call her,
City.
that was brilliant. We call ourselves lovingly the creeps, and our followers are the creeps. And they're great.
Right.
But this is creep with a capital C.
Now I know nothing about this. Obviously, Danny had saying to me a few weeks ago, "Geez, what's going on with P Diddy?" And I said, "Well, let's do a podcast about it." And I said, "I know just the person to ask."
Just the person who likes to. I have become Ireland's official correspondent for P Diddy, a man I gave no time to before October of 2023, and now I know his life story.
Did it not kick off in October 2023?
I'll get through a couple of things with you, right? So I'm going to lead us a bit through his background, the most recent allegations, and then what has happened prior to this and led up to all of this as well. So just for anyone who's listening who doesn't really know kind of the ins and outs of P. Diddy's, I suppose, rise to fame. Also, I'm going to refer to him as Sean Combs throughout this because the allegations are so serious. I just think that referring to someone as Diddy is
stupid. Yeah,
just feels weird.
Very brilliant.
And also, as we'll
good.
get to it later, there's a documentary coming out called Did He Do It? And I just think that's a pun that didn't need to be made. I love a pun. And I love an old glib reference to something. But did he do it when we're talking about literally diddling people is not a good one. Anyway, so Sean Combs.
I'm not amused.
No. Sean Combs, as we know him, we used to know him as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, or Diddy. He is a record producer, entrepreneur, and rapper, and a real mogul in the entertainment industry. Born in Harlem, New York City in 1969, raised primarily in New York, and he went to Howard University, but he left before pursuing a career in the music industry. So he kind of kicked off his journey into music by working at Uptown Records in New York City. And he rose through the ranks there quick enough because he developed the careers of successful artists like Mary J. Blige and Jodeci when he was there. But in 1993, he was fired from Uptown Records, which led him to then starting Bad Boy Entertainment. So Bad Boy Entertainment launched the careers of like Biggie, Faith Evans, and he became this really influential, established key figure in shaping hip hop and R&B music, especially around the 90s and into the early noughties. That success, peak prime time for the music industry, led to other endeavors like fashion. He actually earned a Council of Fashion Designers of America award, and other businesses like fragrance lines, television production, and investments in drink brands. All of this kind of stuff becomes important later when we get to the big indictment that he's going on to. So suffice to say, Diddy, big figure, Sean Combs, really well known, and he's rubbing shoulders with the elite of Hollywood. Like, he's as big as he can get. In the 90s, everybody knew who he was. Songs were used as soundtracks to some of the biggest films in the 90s as well. So like, yeah, like he was a hero amongst men. And his story was great as well, that he had rose up kind of from Harlem broke through and gone into the elite and had been this incredible figure for people to point at to and aspire to be. And, you know,
He's best mates with Notorious B.I.G. as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he was. And like he was associated with Tupac and all that kind of stuff as well. Stuff that I won't necessarily get into the rumors around that. What I want to do is really keep clear between, and I'll just say what's a rumor and what's in the indictment. So what we know is to be fact and what people are saying around it.
Dead.
So there's a couple of cultural things that Sean became known for, that will give context just to stuff we talk about later. The first of these are the white parties. So he used to host these a series of exclusive events known as the white parties. They started in 1998 and they went on to about 2009. These are where you're hearing celebrities being associated with Sean Combs. So these gatherings are all white dress code, diverse array of celebrities from entertainment and fashion industries. They happened at a couple of different residences. Number one was his residence in East Hampton, New York. And then over the years, they were held in kind of more upscale locations, Saint-Tropez in France, Beverly Hills in California. They were really well attended and really publicized events. Obviously, everyone was required to wear all white. And that's what kind of created this association with the Great Gatsby, that they were these just elaborate, show off, weird, kind of almost dystopian, lavishly decorated parties with really, really high profile people. So the names that you're kind of hearing spun around now, and as people who are associated with Sean Combs, the likes of Beyonce, Jay-Z, Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige, and Usher, they're all known to have attended these white parties. Leonardo DiCaprio, Sarah Jessica Parker, Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore, definitely in attendance. Paris Hilton, the Kardashians, Naomi Campbell, kind of models who were there. And then the likes of Tyson Beckford and Lennox Lewis as athletes. So like everyone from Celebland, like anyone who was anyone during 1998, 2009 was at one of these white parties. We have like references, like public references from like Khloe Kardashian speaking about being at one. Ashton Kutcher has spoken about being at them. Now he's said things that are a little bit more nefarious in interviews. He's like, I can't tell you stories about it. Can't tell you stories about that. But in the main, it seems that the white parties probably had a little bit of boldness at them, like a regular gaff party. You know, who amongst us hasn't gone to a party, gotten a little drunk and wanted to keep it a secret? These are not the things that are mentioned in the current charges. But this is why celebrities are being connected to him. So,
Cassie, do we know how often they happened?
I think it was kind of like an annual thing.
Yeah,
but
the white parties were an annual thing, and like you were saying,
Yeah.
like it was just like if I could be wrong, but remembering back to them, it almost felt like celebrities. It was like if you were at one of these parties, you were recognized as one of the who's who of everything. Like
Exactly.
it wasn't it to use the parlance of the conspiracy theorists, yes, the elite.
It was, yeah. It was exactly that. And it was a big deal to be invited. It's kind of like what the Met was, you know, like invited to them. They were midsummer and they blended the worlds of hip hop, Hollywood, and high society. So like it was where someone from fashion, and they were actually heralded as being a kind of bridge between Harlem and high society, because Sean brought a lot of his associates and people that he had brought up from Harlem with him through Bad Boy Records. So like you had this kind of very diverse mixed crowd, which was only a positive thing. They are not the parties that are being referenced to in all the charges. These parties are known as the freak-offs. Now, I well imagine that the white party would turn into a freak-off when the crowd died down. No, you know, I've no doubt that there were people who were probably at the white parties who were involved in the freak-offs, but the white parties themselves seem to be pretty above board. The freak-offs are these private parties that were organized by Sean Combs, and they're characterized as having explicit sexual activities, drug use, and the presence of sex workers. These reportedly took place in the early noughties into the 2010s, and these are central to the legal proceedings against Combs now. So the nature, I guess, of these parties they were described as elaborate gatherings involving multiple sex workers, extensive drug use, substances like ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB were often recorded as being at the parties. And I'll get to in a bit, but we do have visual recordings of these parties. The organization of these parties were done with the association or with the assistance of his associates who would arrange travel, booking, accommodations, and procuring drugs and whatever else supplies. The indictment mentions that the parties would last for days and often involved forms of coercion. So the freak-offs are essential to the federal charges against Sean because part of the nature of the freak-offs was that Sean Combs would transport sex workers across state lines in order to continue facilitating these parties, which we know is sex trafficking and completely illegal. And also it's alleged in the indictment that these events were exploiting individuals, like not just the sex workers, but his staff and other people who were at them as well, that he was coercive and he used violence to maintain control. So before I get into the actual indictment, I'll just give you a little rundown of any previous convictions Sean Combs has had up until 2023, because that gives it's sort of, it's like this stuff that has come out recently to a lot of people is shocking and surprising, but to people who are close to Combs, it isn't really. And anyone who's been following him for a couple of years will have known that there's been multiple lawsuits and other criminal charges brought against him.
Yeah, so, and because this is sorry, I was going to just put in there the second, Cassie, just because I remember hearing a couple of years ago, and I know you said you don't want to get into the more of the rumor kind of side of things, but like comedians on a podcast almost jokingly talking about, like, it was kind of like, who do you think, like, who's the celebrity you'd never mess with kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they were all kind of naming like people you'd expect, you know, like someone saying Mike Tyson, and somebody saying like you wouldn't want to. And then one of them, but like with a very straight face, was like, I'll tell you who I'm not messing with, Diddy.
Yeah.
And they were like adamant that he was bad news. And at the time, this hadn't broke, so it was kind of like, what is he talking about? But now
it's like the writing was on the wall, and it's that kind of like hiding in plain sight sort of thing. You know, it's always one of those things like, oh, shocking, men who rap about raping women found guilty of raping women. It's like, come on, they're not joking. Like, it's the evidence is there. Anyway, we won't get into that, but there was just one conspiracy theory that we will touch on is that he is responsible for Tupac's death. But
yeah,
again, that's all just rumors and conspiracies. And there's nothing in the current court documents about that, and there's enough to get through in the current documents that makes him a bad man.
Very quickly, then, to not derail this or whatever, right? But the Tupac thing, because it was him and Suge Knight. Is your name you always hear, isn't it? And are him and Suge Knight connected or no?
Yeah, well, like they were all.
Sides, didn't
they? There was a split at one point. They all used to be they all used to be great pals. And then someone said something mean to somebody else, and then they started shooting each other. Yeah, and like the rumors center around like him taking out hits and all that kind of stuff. So it's messy, but there's to go down to give any weight to that rumor, you'd have to give weight to the other rumors around it, and some of them are just ridiculous. Like Beyonce is controlling the world, and that's why everyone thanks her in their speeches. Some very funny stuff, but like you can't take one without the other. So it's important we just stick to, I guess, the facts and what we know here. And honestly, the facts are stranger than fiction anyway here.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
We have to keep to the critical thinking, don't we? We
do. Media literacy. We have to question everything we hear, including whatever comes out of my mouth. So okay, let's go back to 1999. I'm just going to like really quickly go through a couple of his charges before. So 1999, there is a New York nightclub incident. In December, he's arrested after a shooting in Club New York in Manhattan. where 3 people were injured. He faced charges of bribery and illegal possession of a firearm. He was acquitted of all charges in 2001, but his then girlfriend, J-Lo, was also detained and released without charges. So we know that he was present, didn't get charged with it, but he was there and he did have a gun on him. In 2001, he was charged with assaulting Steve Stute, a record executive, after a dispute about a music video, and he eventually made a settlement with that. Several civil lawsuits and settlements. So obviously we know the big one against Cassie Ventura in 2023. She filed a $30 million lawsuit against Sean, accusing him of sexual and physical abuse, including instances of sex trafficking and drugging. So this was the first one that I suppose spurred a lot of what has come since October 2023. The lawsuit was settled within days, but that one is important because we got the video, the CCTV leaked video to TMZ that showed Sean Combs kicking Cassie Ventura in a hallway. And again, black and white evidence that the man was abusive. And also settling the lawsuit as well before it would go into court. There's been several lawsuits by employees for multiple reasons, including wrongful termination, sexual harassment, unsafe work conditions. And many of these are just settled before they make it into court. And over the years, several women have come forward with sexual assault allegations. Again, generally the cases are settled or do not result in charges. There's been 2 really big business related lawsuits, trademark and copyright infringement, especially in regards to his clothing line, Sean John. There's been contractual disputes with a lot of his business work. And in one instance, there was a vodka brand that he worked with and he broke the contract. And there was, it was again, civil rather than criminal. So like everything that he's been accused of up until 2023, he's been able to deal with in the civil court. Whereas now we're in a stage where it is federal investigation. So he cannot, these charges up against him now are criminal. So that brings us up to February of 2024, when allegations arose that Sean Combs had raped a 17-year-old girl in a recording studio in 2023. By September 2024, there was additional lawsuits accusing him of multiple sexual assaults and rape, including allegations involving minors. Then in October 2024, a wave of lawsuits came in accusing him of raping women, sexually assaulting men, and molesting a 16-year-old boy. At least 6 lawsuits were filed against him in federal court in Manhattan between February 2024 and October 2024. These allegations have led then to the federal charges, including sex trafficking, racketeering, and again, possession of firearms. So there was an indictment that was released, an unsealed indictment that lays out all of the charges against him currently. And again, this is what we have on record publicly, but since this is the charges brought against him, the court have said that there will be more charges brought against him by May of 2025, because when this broke, within the first 2 weeks of the news breaking that he had been arrested, there's something like 120 new lawsuits brought against him and new victims who had come forward to say that they had been. Oh, there's this is massive. This is huge. And this is not just one guy and his behavior. They've also said that anyone, and I'll get into who's been mentioned in the indictment and who's been mentioned around the freak off parties, but there will be more charges and more arrests made between his associates and people who've been involved. They're basically calling him the Epstein, another Epstein kind of thing, that this is going to be so large when you get the list of who's been attended the freak offs and other kind of other nefarious activities that he was up to, but obviously there'll be people who are mentioned in association with them because they've been associates through the music industry. That's why I think Beyonce and Jay-Z are mentioned loads, but there'll be people who've done criminal activity. And I think don't want to conflate the two. I don't think Beyonce is a criminal, but then again, I've been surprised before. So the indictment is this like huge document that's been released by the court, and the main charges in it are racketeering conspiracy. So it says from 2008 to 2024, he led a criminal enterprise involving his business using violence, threats, and coercion to control and abuse people. The next big charge is sex trafficking. So that goes back to the freak offs, saying that from 2009 to 2018, he allegedly forced victims, often under the guise of romantic relationships, into sexual acts and elaborate sex performances called freak offs, using threats of physical violence and drugs. Interstate transportation for the purpose of prostitution. So from 2009 to 2024, again, he allegedly transported victims across state lines for sex work, violence, and coercion. He is accused of physical abuse, including hitting, kicking, dragging, and threatening victims. And this part of the indictment extends to his employees and other people generally in his orbit. The use of firearms. So he and his associates, including his security personnel, carried and brandished firearms to intimidate victims. Some of these firearms are found to have been, the serial numbers to have been scratched off them. Another charge is the obstruction of justice. So he attempted to bribe witnesses, tampered with evidence, and he allegedly pressured victims and witnesses to not report his crimes and spread false narratives to protect himself. And also the indictment says, obviously, he's a massive flight risk. So that is why he remains in custody, because of his resources and influences. It is possible that he would be able to just fuck off and get away with it. But thankfully, they have kept him in custody. So one of the big parts of this as well is the idea of these tapes. So what we have on the record in the indictment is that Sean Combs, the indictment includes allegations of recording non-consensual sexual acts, which are central to the charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. It accuses Sean of orchestrating and filming elaborate sexual performances, drugging victims to ensure compliance, and using threats and blackmail. So it details these accusations, but it does not explicitly mention tapes or recordings. But witness testimonies have brought to attention to alleged recording. So like one witness claimed to have seen sex tapes involving Sean Combs and other celebrities, including minors. So this is kind of where it divulges then into rumor and speculation. So we're obviously getting a lot of commentary from people who've been associated with Diddy over the years, or Sean Combs over the years, including Courtney Berg's legal witness in the proceedings, who said on a podcast he possesses the explicit video recordings that implicate Sean Combs and other celebrities in misconduct. So Courtney claims that these recordings were given to him by Kim Porter, who is one of Sean's ex-wives and the mother of, well, she's since passed away, but was the mother of his children. And Courtney describes the context as sex tapes featuring high-profile individuals, again, including minors, engaging in inappropriate activities. And he says that these tapes expose long-standing troubling behavior by Sean Combs and his associates. But again, this is something Courtney Berg has said on a podcast. This is not in the indictment, but the indictment has enough reference to recordings that I think we can believe what is being said about the tapes. The idea, I guess, yeah, go on.
So I was going to ask, and I think this is more into the rumor area again. So if it is, feel free to be like, no, Danny, shut up. We'll just stick to the facts here, right? But his ex-partner and mother of the Kim Porter, was it?
Kim Porter, yeah.
So she died, but like, am I right in saying there's like a lot of people who are talking about the manner in which she, like, I think, was it pneumonia or something like that?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's all sorts of kind of like, oh, you know.
Yeah. So one of the things that we know is that when Sean Combs was arrested, there was over 1,000 bottles of baby oil found on his premises. It all feeds into some of the rumors we're hearing. And I don't want to say, like, I do think a lot of what is being said is true, but just we can't, until it's on the record, we can't acknowledge it as such. But Kim died of pneumonia at the age of 47, I think. And apparently, again, allegedly, that if you the same way you used to put chloroform on a thing and cover it over someone's mouth for them to pass out. If someone inhales baby oil, the death will read as pneumonia. So if you asphyxiate on baby oil, it can present as pneumonia. It can present as fluid in the lungs. So, yeah, that's what the rumors are saying around her death. Her death was suspicious. She was very young and she wasn't suffering majorly in any days beforehand. So her death is absolutely, like, definitely suspicious. And around the time of her death, she was allegedly working on a book that would expose all of this. And then an unofficial, unsubstantiated version of that book made it onto Amazon recently from an author who was saying that he was a friend of Kim Porter's, and these were the documents that she was working on. Those documents are salacious. There is not one celebrity listed in that hasn't been accused of either being in an affair with Sean Combs or engaging with these freak-offs. And one of the things I really hate that happens around when we see celebrities being accused or charged with sex acts is that it then becomes this story about like homosexuality and all that kind of stuff. And like we saw it with Kevin Spacey when he was accused of abuse. He came out and he was like, I'm sorry, I'm a gay man. And this seemed perfectly normal. And that's really detrimental and dangerous to the queer community, because the people who aren't supportive of that community will associate abuse and the behaviors of queer people. And that's awful. And a lot of the stuff around here now is that Sean Combs was secretly bisexual or homosexual, and he was engaging with like affairs with the likes of Jay-Z and, some of the top rappers of the 90s and the early noughties. And that's why it was all covert and hidden up. But it's really important that we distinguish that his abuse of minors, regardless of their gender, is abuse and is not influenced by sexual preference. He's just a bad man.
Absolutely.
Really bad
So
man.
that book that got in the hands of that person, can we take from that book that it is like
Well,
her
Kim
statement?
Porter's family have come out and said that it wasn't. Now they could be coerced into that. They could be fearful. Who knows? But they have denied that it's her writing. There are associates mentioned in that book. But when I say the book is, if it's true, it's absolutely wild. The stuff that's being alleged in that book, that he forced Kim into threesomes with him and other male celebrities, that he was having long-standing affairs with some very high-profile people. Like everyone and anyone is mentioned in.
And the people mentioned threatening legal action at all?
No, I don't think a lot of people want to draw attention to it, to be honest with you.
Jesus.
Like, I'll get to who has commented and who hasn't, but people are staying very, very quiet around this. There's a couple of celebrities who have publicly have always kind of been, I suppose, critical of Sean Combs. So like 50 Cent, for one, he's actually working on the documentary called Did He Do It with Netflix. But he's been vocal all the time about the charges and allegations against Sean Combs. Kesha, another one, has, and obviously she's had her own history with talking about this in the music industry. And she's kind of criticized him. Aubrey O'Day, who is an interesting one, she is a Danity Kane member. They were signed to Bad Boy Records, and they were on a kind of like reality TV show, Finding the Next Talent, where he was putting together this group. Yeah, really good show. But she had alleged from years ago that she had been abused by Sean Combs, and that she's posting on social media after his arrest saying that the purpose of justice is to provide an ending and allow us the space to create a new chapter. So obviously, again, really critical of his behavior, and has been saying it loudly for a long time. Ray J, who is mentioned in the indictment, said in a recent interview that several celebrities are paying off Sean Combs' alleged victims to keep their names undisclosed, suggesting that these individuals are attempting to distance themselves from the scandal. So there's a lot to still Yeah.
Ray J, for context, former partner Kim Kardashian, which at least opens the inference, if not insinuates, that Kim Kardashian would also have knowledge slash awareness of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. And the Kardashians we know have been friends publicly with Sean Combs for a really long time, are known to be well, like have attended the white parties, and that's, I guess it's that kind of line of like they're known associates. They attended these
Yeah.
white parties, so how much did they know, and how much like we'll never know that because we'll only know the names of the celebrities who are charged with things publicly, or they'll settle and they'll keep it all quiet.
Do we
So-
know if any other celebrities have been brought in for questioning?
Yeah, so there's some associates from Bad Boy Entertainment have been brought in. There, Rodney Jones, Little Rod, he's a music producer, and he's been not charged yet, but there's been references to him in the indictment alleging sexual assault and other misconduct. Brendan Paul, who is a former basketball player and associate, was arrested in 2024, in March, sorry, of this year, on charges of procuring controlled substances for the party. He's been actually accused. So Lil Rod said that Brendan Paul was essentially the drug mule for all the parties. And they're the ones that we kind of know of as right now. But again, the prosecution have said that by the time this trial date is set for May 2025, the prosecution have said by the time this comes to trial, there will be many other people named and probably many other charges brought forward.
So, right, in terms then of like that, the name, 'cause
Fucking mad.
it's wild. The whole thing is wild, and like you kind of touched on like some of the names that have been associated with Sean Combs over the years. You know, Mary J. Blige was one that he scored. Faith Evans, obviously, Biggie, Usher, but and again, if I'm bringing us into rumor, pull it out, whatever. But whenever you hear the Usher one mentioned, the name that quickly follows in is Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
And the fact that Justin Bieber was like 13, 14, whatever he was when
he was working with Sean Combs. Yeah. So there's a video that's kind of been doing the rounds as well of an old MTV interview, kind of the day in the life thing that they used to do, where whatever it was that show, like the diary or the making of or something, they used to follow him around. And there is a scene in that where he's with Sean Combs and they're talking about going off to spend their day together. And Sean Combs is like, we're going to go off and get drunk and like find women and all that kind of stuff. There is an actual charge in the indictment, not mentioning a name, but saying that he sexually assaulted a 16-year-old male minor. So a lot of people are claiming that to be Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber hasn't spoken publicly about it, and I don't think Usher has made any statements, but there are the rumors, again, back in the rumor mill, is that basically it was that Sean Combs was so powerful in the music industry that he would find these up and coming artists, sexually assault them. And then again, back to the idea of the tapes. Sorry, I meant to say this when we're talking about the tapes, but these tapes are part of the coercion and control, that he held these against people as ransom, knowing that he himself was untouchable, but he would have this visual evidence against people, and that could derail their careers in terms of, you know, what a sex scandal does to anyone. So it was a really coercive way to keep them silenced.
And like the thing with all of this, so like it's bonkers for a start, and it's absolutely horrible and deplorable. But one of the things, maybe it's morbid, but one of the things that's interesting is that for years you hear people who are on that kind of fringe conspiracy and they're into all these things talking about, you know, the Hollywood elite and the pedo rings and all that kind of stuff. So when something like this or when something like the Epstein thing comes along, suddenly, you know, these...
It gives credence to it, yeah. It's almost as seen as proof. And that's the thing about it being, you know, stranger than fiction. And I'm not one of these people who's like, there's no smoke without fire. But we know that power corrupts, and that money and power combined often lead, like unabashed power leads to tragedy in this kind of, and people being taken advantage of. And often people who seek out fame in the music industry or Hollywood or entertainment are self-serving people who are attracted to that kind of level of attention for whatever reason, and have a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And with that then comes a lack of empathy and a desire to control and a desire to take advantage and hurt people. It's awful. So yeah, I don't know, like you'd think, because there's so many rumors that have been spread since Epstein about different people in Hollywood. Like I remember one a couple of years ago, this really the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, and then how that led into the idea that Tom Hanks was a pedophile because he was posting pictures of gloves on the internet. But like when people get a crumb of truth in something and a story like this breaks, it's very hard to turn around and be like, oh, that's true, but your glove theory is off, or your Pizzagate theory is off. But we're really dealing with, I suppose, a mass of misinformation here as well, and that's why I think it's so important that we stick, like not just we as a whole, but like everyone stick to what is included in the actual stuff. Because if we start going down the rumor, I mean, I'd love going down the rumor train that Beyonce is secretly controlling the world, but like that's people start being glib and it becomes facetious, and then the lines between what is true and false is completely blurred. And I think what I've learned this week as we enter into Donald Trump's next presidency is that there are a lot of people who are not media literate and who don't know where that line is between fact and fiction, and cannot distinguish between what's true and false. So,
and unfortunately,
has any celebrity come forward, anyone like come forward with a comment or denying or just anything, like, because didn't we say about Ashton Kutcher? He's quite problematic, isn't he, Ashton Kutcher?
Ashton Kutcher is deeply problematic. Like he's another one who comes up regularly on the creep dive. He once was dating a girl and went to pick her up from a date and found her murdered at the scene and rang his representation before he rang the police. That's a well-known public story.
Wow.
There's no rumors there.
I'd never heard that before. That's mad.
Yeah. So he was at a crime scene and rang his people before he got help from her. And there was a lot of speculation about whether she was actually dead inside the house. Also a lot of speculation about like him being there and not being a suspect. And Ashton Kutcher, as we know, also was madly supportive, and him and Mila Kunis wrote character references for Danny Masterson during his rape trial last year, and their justification for that was that they did not know that they would be made public, and they apologized to victims after that. But still,
we didn't know it was going to be.
But then you have to look at like these, like who Ashton Kutcher associates with. Like he's publicly been a very good friend of Sean Combs and a very good friend of Danny Masterson's. Like I don't know how male friendship groups work, but I would know if one of my female friends was sexually assaulting people, and I would know if one of my my friends' behavior was unacceptable. So either he exists in like a very small echo chamber where he genuinely didn't know, or he exists in an echo chamber where he thinks that a lot of the misconduct that was going on was fine. And maybe he didn't go to the freak offs or whatever, but like, I don't think that there was like a Sean Combs that attended the freak offs and a Sean Combs who attended the white parties. I think that like, this is all indicative of Sean Combs' view of women and vulnerable people. And I don't know how the people around him wouldn't have been aware of that. Or maybe they just thought it was facetious. But like you go through his lyrics and his work and like the stuff that he says publicly, and you're like, all the signs are there. Same with Donald Trump. You're like, how can anybody look at these people and think that they have respectable views of women when they've publicly stated time and time and time again that they don't?
And I think this is like, it's like know them by the friends they keep kind of thing, right? So like not trying to say guilt by association here, but like to your exact point, when you see something that looks like a bit of a pattern, right? And I know like with the Danny Masterson case, like, yeah, they, he got, what was the Netflix show that they were doing? The Ranch. right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Masterson was on that with him, and at first they tried to play it off, and then when it became clear as day, he was hastily written off the show or whatever. But like at that stage, it's kind of like now you're doing it to save face as opposed to actually, and it just
Yeah.
seems like there's a pattern in terms of that
Oh
association.
yeah, like they could write him off the show because they knew commercially that was the right thing to do, and it's all commerce at the end of the day. For them.
Yeah,
If they knew they'd lose, Netflix would probably cancel the show if they didn't. But behind the scenes, they're still writing character references for him.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like,
I wouldn't mind. That was a decent show.
And we wouldn't
Yeah,
have wrote them only for they were made because they were made
we didn't
public.
know that they were going to be read
yeah.
out and made public and freely available. Like,
Character
It's absolutely
references
mad.
really need to be like they need to be rid of. It's absolutely ridiculous that in such cases like that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't. We see it closer to home in Ireland a lot of the time with oh, he was a good GA man. He was, the priest, the parish priest said he was nice. I mean, fuck off, like.
yeah, it is ridiculous, and the idea that the character references are weighted as well, given on the celebrity status of those who give them, like that
Yeah.
Ashton
Yeah.
Kutcher and Mila Kunis could influence the sentencing of a man found guilty of rape
Of
or
rape.
sexual
We've
assault.
often actually heard judges say when handing down sentences, we've often heard judges say, the character reference was a contributing factor in a low sentence. Like we've heard that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's which is
so
appalling. Like,
it's
do you know,
appalling.
like,
Considering what the victims have to go through in terms of being on the dock and in the witness box and embarrassed, humiliated, mental
yeah,
health brought up as a stain on them. It's
yeah, and
ridiculous.
how their intentions are frequently, I suppose, questioned, where the perpetrator's intentions definitely aren't as much. Like we see it all the time. We've got the McGregor case going on at the moment. Actually, terrified to even say his name publicly because of the
I
power
know.
that he yields in Dublin. He just seems absolutely untouchable. He himself, a very strong and unstable and terrifying man. And then just having had, all this like incredible influence. So the case has to be taken up as a civil case because the DPP didn't find enough evidence to prosecute as a criminal one. Like, that's mad.
It's absolutely insane. Like, and it's like as we're recording this, it's the middle of the week, and that court case is ongoing, and following the testimony and following the updates from it, and as you're reading it, and you're kind of trying to piece it together as it comes through, but you're like, no matter what way you look at it, it's deplorable. Like there's no matter what way you try to not justify. What's the word? I can't even think of the word I'm looking for. No matter what way you try to kind of rationalize,
reconcile it in your head.
yeah, like
it's still
the
appalling.
mental gymnastics that are needed, are Olympic level. And as you said, like he wields ridiculous power and influence. And unfortunately, it's in a category or a demographic where you kind of just sit there and shake your head and go, fucking hell, like how is this?
This what happens with when men get power and men get millions and stuff like that. They feel untouchable and payoffs and payoffs and payoffs. Like when you were relaying the information about Sean Combs, how many times has he paid off? Settlement.
Oh, so many. And like they're the ones that we know of as well. Like there'd be ones that aren't made public. It's been happening time and time again with them over decades. This goes back to 1990. That's 24 years. 34 years ago.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Don't worry, we all think the 90s is only. Don't worry, we're all guilty of that. Yeah,
I know. So we're getting so old.
I know.
But
it's so depressing though, isn't it? All this is depressing.
It's just
the
that we get
stuff.
Stories like this all the time. I think as maybe it's people.
Is it getting worse? Do you think it's getting worse?
Yeah. I mean, I think
so too.
there's active things being done, but it's it's very hard to not feel like it's not being worse, like especially the week that's
Yeah.
in it. Like when you have a man like Donald Trump who can say, I want to grab women by the pussy, and even in his political campaign say, I don't want to listen to the women, I'm going to do it anyway. And not in reference to sexual assault, but in just other things, who cannot connect the dots in his own mind that consent is an important factor in every
But,
aspect of your life.
but even look at the people who are like who he surrounds himself with. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
it's not they're not bastions of good fucking will we're talking about here. Dana White,
no,
like on video beating a woman.
His wife.
Elon Musk, not exactly a fucking good
Elon
dude
Musk and
either.
all his spies, and
You know,
JD
The
Vance and the
sounds of a
hatred,
child.
and
Imagine the sound of a child, like.
and he was it the Republican, the fella who went viral the other day for saying your body, my choice, and really goading women.
yeah. I can't think of the name now,
There
but
was rumors that
like,
his house had burnt down last night, but they were only rumors. Yeah, like it's really hard to feel like it's not becoming a dystopian place for women. You know, it's when you have that kind of rhetoric happening, when you see that Sean Combs was able to get away with this kind of behavior really in plain sight for so long. And then you see the Conor McGregor case, and he's knowing that he's untouchable and he's really not going to suffer as a result of that. Like he will still be able
yeah,
to compete in sport. He will still be heralded by so many young men. And Donald Trump is going to be the president again, unless we unveil some massive conspiracy with voter fraud. But like, it feels futile. And the thing that's really worrying at the moment is this sense of male empowerment. And like, I don't mean that to be like, obviously, I want everyone to feel empowered, but the goading that is happening from the far right at the moment is so painful to witness, really. Like, it's so unnecessary. It feels like if there had been, if there had been a conservative win in the US elections, people could accept that. But it's this idea that they want to taunt and goad and really cause harm to women, even if if it's just, but like a lot of that can just be mental torture. And
yeah.
I noticed, I mean, it might be unrelated, but since when Donald Trump was elected president, I was down in town and I was walking through Drury Street at 5:30 with a friend of the party for more. And a man kind of turned around and just gave me a punch. Not like he was definitely intoxicated, but whatever. There was that.
Jesus.
I was in a pub last week on a Wednesday after we did our Creep Live show. A man got angry and broke all the windows in the bar. We got locked in waiting for the guards. A friend of mine was mugged at 6:00 outside of her gym last Thursday. And then there's just a lot of like that shite being called on the streets again. A run club. I gave out to a run club the other day because I'm a cranky old woman now. They were running on the footpath and they surrounded me. And I said, Jesus, it's like being in the Lion King. And some fella turned around and he was like, I wouldn't be fucking running after you, love. And I was like, what is this? Just, it feels like there's the opposite of an uprising, and it's not going to be good. That there's just this sense of like, I don't know.
I can't fathom it, and I can't understand how it felt like for a while, right, there was good progress being made in a lot of things, particularly in kind of that moving closer to where we're still a long way from it, but moving more towards that space where kind of, diversity of opinion is seen as a good thing and equity starts to become a much bigger and broader part of conversations. And we're fucking regressing now. And we're regressing because, and I don't understand how this is what has happened, but white men have become somehow
well, I think
the target, and they think like it's fucking. I'm a cis white man. I'm not threatened by it. Like, cop on, lads. Like, come on. For fuck's sake.
I think for people who've been privileged for a long time, to them, equity looks a lot like oppression. So there's this idea, and that this is what Trump has done with his campaign, and this is what like Elon does, and this is what the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Tates of the world do, is that they divide and conquer. So they've pitted the right against each other, or pitted the right against the left, and everyone is the enemy, and the people around you are the greatest threat to your individuality and your success, because they're coming for your jobs, and they're coming for your women, and women are coming for your rights, and women are coming for your money, and like, God, they're coming for your children, and trans people don't know jack shit. Like, it's absolute, like it's a brilliant political strategy in that it has worked, but it is so obvious
Fear.
to us
Yeah.
who can see, who are liberal people who can see the full picture, that it's insane that we buy into this message of democracy and working together and moving forward. And that's why I think, we could have accepted if it was just a conservative win and that policies were different. But when it feels like we're having this, it feels like the enemy here is ignorance, not and misinformation, and not like genuine conservative policies. And there actually isn't even any policies there to discuss. All that's there is hatred. And we're trying to fight against people's ideas of what we are. And like, I don't know. I don't know how you win that war. I really don't. I'm very glad that I don't live in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a good place for the next few years anyway.
No.
And the and this is Mero and I talked about this on our episodes recently. It's kind of like the second time round is going to be far worse. The sequel is never better.
Oh, Acceptance
And
is Track 2, far better.
fair. That's a fair
Mhm.
point. And maybe Terminator 2, maybe.
Mhm.
But like,
But
yeah, I
he's
don't know,
after
man.
appointing Elon Musk to his staff, and Fox
She's
News
appointed a
presenter
Fox News presenter who doesn't believe in germs as the head of defense or head of
Yeah,
doesn't
security.
wash his hands. Yeah, doesn't wash his
yeah.
hands.
This is he's for
Wouldn't shake that
he's
guy's
and
hand.
in winning the Senate and likely to win the House, he has this just access to power that he didn't have in his first term.
The guardrails are
And like,
completely gone.
oh my God, did you see that the highest search thing on Google in the swing states was "Can I change my vote?" over the last, like the spike in "Can I change my vote" has risen by like 700% or something on
Are you
Google Trends
serious?
Yeah,
in
but
the
I mean, like, this
US.
is
There
like,
was another
But
thing.
yeah,
There was another internet searches for how to move abroad are up by more than 1,000% after the US election result.
I
yeah,
mean,
it's wild. Like, but it must
but
be so.
look,
I mean, I was talking to a couple. I have a few friends and relatives in America, and I was talking to them last week, and they're just so deflated. Like it's kind of hard to know where to go with it, and really hard to know. It's really hard to know as well how to process it, how to
yeah,
feel about it, because it feels like it's it's not like, as I said, like it's not a conservative policies versus liberal policies. It's a hatred of the opposition that's coming
it's
from one side, you know?
it's a cult ideology that they're subscribing
Yeah.
to,
It's
and
all
it's
cult, yeah, it's all cult.
like it's bananas, and it's like, and here's the thing, right? Because like the logical thing to do is to say, no, you need to sit down and you need to break bread with these people and you need to find the middle ground. But when one side is just absolutely hell bent on never even looking at the middle ground
Yeah.
and convincing people that the middle ground is actually the worst place, like there is no, it's us and them, right? The idea of no them, only us is gone. It is
Mm.
completely an us and them divide now. And it's like, I can't see how this ends in any way in a
No.
positive way. I can't see how in 4 years' time an election is coming along that looks like any kind of hope or any kind of positivity coming through. Like, this is
But
like,
that's what we were saying
I'm
last
not trying
week.
to be alarmist about it, but like, it genuinely
But I
feels
think we
like this
have to,
is
like, we generally, I was reading a lot of stuff about how, I was reading a lot of what I would view as like hyperbolic stuff about what's going to happen over the next term of presidency. And it seemed end of world, dystopian, crazy, like mad shit. But if we don't go there and imagine what can happen and we all sit and become complacent, then that's when the bad shit will happen. Like we have to be prepared here for the absolute worst. And that is like, that's international wars. That's like proper rise of fascism. That's like really going to impact like the culture. Even I suppose loads of people said to me, it doesn't matter. We're not living in America. Let them at it. I was like, but the cultural wars that have started because of this are going
Yeah,
to really
agree.
impact the next us all for the next 4 years, and
should we
that's the toll it takes on
we
you go
already see it
mental.
here. Look at some of
Yeah,
the characters that have emerged in Ireland in recent years that parrot and just regurgitate the absolute bollocksology you hear from people
Yeah.
in America 5, 6 years ago, and now it's found its way over here into the mouths of like the ignorant fucking arseholes. Like there's no
Yeah.
other way of labeling them, quite frankly.
Well,
And it's
it's like the
just,
podcast bros that reach the algorithms in Ireland, and
Mero, you and I are podcast bros. Be very careful.
we're good podcast bros though. Like, you
Are
know,
we? Are we?
well, I mean, we're not sexist,
But we
fucking
do it.
toxic
There's a real
masculinity pigs.
difference. Yeah. There is a
No,
real
I am.
difference as
Yeah.
well when you go out there and you try to facilitate conversation. Like, I think we used to produce a lot of podcasts. Podcasts are a great space for people to not only be informed, but like for the hosts and the people who are in it and the audience to come together and figure shit out. And like we endeavor to move the conversation forward in a way that is like, let's learn about this, or let's go and find the resources to do it. We all make mistakes. But you have a lot of those fucking podcast bros who are out there presenting things as fact, and it's just not correct. Like, it's just not right. Like, and how they can sit there with like massive authority, followings, fame, loads of money behind them, and just
they're all grifters.
so confidently just lie about things, you know?
But that's the world we live in now, where like up is down, down is up, left is right. So like you just can't.
Yeah.
Like you said it earlier on, Cassie, right? Like that misinformation that has just become, like truth has lost all meaning in so many ways.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like a
earlier
message
today.
now.
So go on.
I said a message now doesn't have to be true; it just has to be believed, and that's the danger of it. Like that's the goal that they have in these campaigns, is to get people to believe what you say, not to say the thing that is true and factual.
Yeah, when perception is reality. Do you know what I mean? That's what we're living in now. And like even today, The Guardian announced they're coming off X because like, what's the fucking point anymore? Right? Like that's the Twitter X, whatever. Like it's got so bad that like The Guardian are like, oh, we're posting water up a hill here. Like there's no point in us trying to engage and trying to actually do anything there, because the audience, the algorithm, whatever way you want to look at it.
Was that the reason, was it?
Not verbatim, but essentially what they're saying is like, why? Like, why would you engage in that? Because it has become nothing but a cesspit for falsehoods, for lies, for whatever way you want to put it. You know?
You should look into the dead internet theory. Have you read about this?
No.
Like there's so many bots on the internet that it's just bots having conversations with each other. So it's actually the like people who are scrolling the internet or reading that are in danger. But like the people, like the vitriol that's coming out is like AI generated shit. There's a conversation then that happens. I find the reference and send it on to you, Mara, but like two bots start fighting with each other. And then there's that, did you see the viral video recently of two AI podcast hosts discover that they're AI?
Yes.
Like we won't get into the AI stuff, and like I don't think AI is sentient, but I think the dead internet theory is that like 70-80% of what we're reading on the internet now is just generated by the vitriol that's gone before. So it's just perpetuating even further, and it's desperate, but like
that AI, we had Elaine Burke on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she said about that AI podcast thing, and I went and found it afterwards, and I just sat there like just being like, we're in a simulation.
Mad,
we're in a simulation, man. So like it's just
like,
you've been saying that since COVID, Danny.
Oh man, I'm telling you now,
I've been saying it for years.
Once COVID came along and I didn't see boards for a few days, it was very clear to me that they were changing the batteries in the boards. That's what's happened to
Yeah.
It's mental that Musk is after getting a job in the cabinet there with Trump.
Stop, man.
And like when he bought Twitter, like the value of it's gone down 90%. Didn't he buy it for 44 billion?
44
yeah, and it's gone down to a value of 637 million. And now
he's going to be
it's going to be in a cabinet of in charge of efficiency.
But like if we want to get like fucking Trump has declared bankruptcy 6 times. But if we wanted to get really conspiratorial about that, like the whole purchasing of X was leading up to this moment. Like he knew what he was turning it into.
Yeah, he was essentially, I hate using the word weaponizing because it just sounds so fucking Alex Jones, but he was weaponizing it, known full well. Like if you look at like how it all played out and then what he stands to gain through his SpaceX and Donald Trump's space wars and all this kind of crack that you hear, like it sounds conspiracy theory, but it's just, there's a brilliant video on the go at the moment breaking down from the point that Elon Musk goes to buy Twitter right through to the election, and just it is
saw that,
like, but you forget
the
you
project
forget a lot of the stuff.
The Project 2025 stuff seems to be coming to fruition in a sense with the appointment of Musk, the host of Fox News, the Secretary of Defense, and also
Yeah.
what's going to happen here. The commentator was on Drive Times earlier on, a US historian, political historian, and he was basically saying that what's going to happen next is that a lot of the generals in the US Army and Defense have been criticizing Trump for the last 4 years. He's just going to sack them all and
Of
put all
course he
yes
will.
men in.
Yeah, of course
He's
we will.
going to put
'Cause
all
Yeah.
the yes men in. So,
yeah.
I mean,
But that's his whole agenda here now. Like his own cabinet from previous have said that they do not trust him and not to let this man be president again. Like that he is going for dictatorship. Like he has said, he admires the work of Hitler. Like, and how people are just like, but he's not a woman and he's not black and he's kind of funny. He thinks Hannibal Lecter is a real person and a good guy at the same time. Like
this is like when people talk about asylum seekers, he thinks they're talking about people from insane asylums.
yeah, it's
Like,
so
it's-
concerning. He
it's
didn't
just-
realize that Obamacare and the Affordable Health Care Act were the same thing.
yeah, he's a gobshite. Do you
Like,
think
but-
he'll pardon Sean Combs?
Probably fucking will. Well, he can't do that to the next 4 years. I'm sure this will go on for ages and ages and ages and ages. Sean Combs will be killed. I'm going reels off now. Sean Combs will
Love
be
it.
murdered in prison. There'll be
You
another
reckon?
Epstein.
So he's
100%. Epstein didn't kill himself.
He
But
was a hit.
Sean Combs is still in custody now as we're talking, yeah?
Sean Combs is still in custody, but as other names keep coming out in relation to these charges, I'd say there'll be a sudden death somewhere along the line.
Jesus. Do we know where he's in custody?
I think he's still in Manhattan, but I'm not sure on that one.
That's where
Yeah, he'll
Epstein
be in
was.
custody anyway till May 2025 when the trial begins. If the world is
And-
still standing.
Yeah, will it be on Court TV?
Fingers crossed.
Beyond,
I don't think they
Fingers
publicize.
crossed.
I don't think they publicize. They don't do it in Manhattan or in New York. I don't think you can watch live things, but we will get enough out of it anyway.
I wanted either on Judge
24/7.
Judy or I wanted on that Rhode Island judge who's really friendly to old people who have parking tickets. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Do you ever see it? It's the most wholesome content. It's just
Yeah.
lovely, like,
So-
you know,
Americans can be wholesome.
at times. We all
At
can, I
times.
At
suppose.
times.
Cassie, I'm very conscious that we've taken up your entire evening so that you can, one, educate and enlighten us, but also give us absolute batshit crazy stories about. I can't get past that old woman and the Ouija board. I just can't. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on that now.
You'll have to. That'll push you to sleep tonight. Now listen to "Don't Give
Oh,
Granny
listen.
the Ouija board."
Yeah. And me in a creepy ass hotel. It's going to be great now. So,
Oh, there's nothing like listening to horror stories on your own.
yeah, I'll be sleeping with the lights on
In the
tonight.
dark.
Yeah. In the dark when you're far away from your loved ones and anyone who can protect you. Sleep well, Danny.
Thanks.
You will. You're in a nice hotel there, Danny.
Yeah.
Cassie, thanks so much.
Before we let you go, Cassie, where can people find you
That's
/ the
exactly what I was
Creep
going to
Diet?
say.
Very good. I am at Cassie Lorraine on Instagram and I'm on TikTok, Cassie Delaney.
Oh,
Yeah. I make little daily vlogs about my life. Haven't done one today because I had to go to the dentist and that content seemed boring. You guys have it as an exclusive.
unreal. I haven't taken to the TikTok yet. I haven't taken to it, but
Oh, it's where all the good conspiracies lie.
this
And the trends.
And the trends
This
and
is
the
it.
little dances and everything else.
Yeah.
amazing. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Thank you
so much,
for your
Cassie.
time and
It
for
was worth the wait.
giving
Wasn't
us
it?
all the dirt on your man. Unreal.
Anytime, lads.
A great chat there with Cassie, and a huge thank you to her for joining us, giving us her time, and bringing us up to speed on what is a very dark, but just
It's a dark pod, wasn't it? It was.
but it's gripping content in terms of like you can't help but want to know what is going on, you know?
Yeah. No better person to talk about stuff like that in finer detail, and I really like that separated kind of fact from rumor. You know that way.
Yeah, I done my best to keep dragging her towards the rumor because I operate better in the grey area. So
But but some of the snippets that Cassie was telling us what they've discussed on the Creep Dive podcast, you
yeah, man.
know, Ashton Kutcher being problematic, you know, some of those topics would be
I,
well worth a listen,
that
you
is,
know.
I'm sorry, that is an absolute gorgeous turn of phrase to use in this instance. Being
What?
being being problematic. I just
Yeah.
love that. I'm sorry, I love that. It's just a
But I
very,
like the disingenuousness of him and his wife, Mia Kunis,
and it's weird because
saying
like I would
such
have quite
disingenuous, like,
I would have quite liked them, you know? Like I would have watched Punked back in the day. I would have watched
yeah.
that 70s show. I watched The Ranch. Like I would have kind of thought like, ah yeah, you know, I'd watch him in something. And
It's
Mila
mad though,
Kunis
like
is like
it's
she's Meg
mad.
from Family Guy, you know what I mean? Like you can't
Well,
help but kind of go on, sorry, we're talking over each other, Graham. We're not
is
we're
that because
not
the lines in
symbiotic.
Cork, is it?
It must be the dial up down here.
The dial-up connection.
Oh,
It's mad.
it's high speed internet in Cork, Graham. My employers are based here. I have to say that they're absolutely the finest Wi-Fi in all the land down around here.
Lovely. It's my fault. Then it's mad
Exactly.
when you watch. You said there that you would have liked Ashton and his wife, and you obviously mean as actors and stuff. And it's mad,
Yeah,
like, because when you're mid to late teens and even mid probably to late 20s maybe, but I'll see what you think when I say it. But when you're watching sport or when you're watching movies or TV shows and you like the performance of an actor, you like the performance of a footballer or whatever, you kind of you kind of get very defensive about them
yeah,
if you're taking a fancy to them. And then as you get older, you're kind of going, yeah, I support that team, but I couldn't give a shite about the person, like, because
yeah,
you're going to feel let down. You know, you're going to feel let down about them because they're going to say something that's against your way of thinking. Like,
yeah.
it
So I
happens.
think,
Remember Robbie Keane taking the job in Maccabi Tel Aviv? I
hmm.
mean, that just, I was like, here,
But
who
it's in
advised that? Tone deaf. And
yeah,
and
but
and
it's in the same.
people say that I resigned in the summer of 2023, and it's like, yeah, but like this is going on 75 years, like,
It goes into that bracket of can you separate the art from the artist, right? Like
yeah, it does, yeah,
look at how many times we've changed the intro of this podcast because the music we were using, we were like, we can't use that bell end anymore. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's the same. Like, you know, The Usual Suspects. I absolutely love that film, but you know, Kevin Spacey is a fucking deplorable character these days. So you know, when like if I go to watch it, kind of, can I enjoy it? I can't watch House of Cards. Michael Jackson, you know, yeah, he had some bops, but can you listen to his music and enjoy it? You know what I mean? Like nobody is when asked what their karaoke song is saying, Gary Glitter, do you want to be in my gang? Right? You can't necessarily always separate the art from the artist. And I think this kind of thing is the same where once you get to a certain point in terms of like what you believe in and what you hold in terms of your values, you struggle to square that circle. You struggle to say to yourself, like, I'm okay with this person doing things, or I'm okay with this person saying things that completely goes against what I would say and what I would do because, you know, he scored the most goals for Ireland, or whatever the case might
yeah.
be. It's very difficult. When you're younger, it's easier. But as you get older, you kind of, I don't know. For me, anyway, I'm just speaking personally.
No,
And
no, I
there's
agree.
times where you know, ignorance is bliss. And look, if people can go, oh, I don't worry or I don't think about that kind of shit, fair play, absolutely brilliant. But for me, there's things where I'm just like, I can't, like, I just can't. I just in good conscience, I'm like, I can't fucking support that because, you know. And then there's other people who'd be
It,
like, yeah, but
it's
Danny, like, how far do you take that? And I'm like, I'm a hypocrite, right? Because how far do you take that? I'm saying this to you when I'm wearing Nike shoes. You know what I mean? I'm saying this to you and I'm recording on an Apple laptop. Like all these things, and you follow them down the food chain and you follow them down the oak, and you're like, yeah, there's fucking all manner of stuff there. So
yeah.
I don't have the answer for it. And this has turned into a 3 minute ramble where I've actually just talked myself out of the point I was making. So, Graham, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Look, I just it was timely that I brought up Robbie Keane just because earlier in the week he was invited to the Irish senior men's team to give out caps, and
Right.
the FAI put up on their social media, and because of Ireland's staunch defence of Palestine, the reaction. Firstly, I thought the post and maybe the invitation was potentially tone deaf, for a number of reasons. Number one, and I don't blame him for the contract situation. He only
Mm.
accepted the contract, but having said that, he's a gazillionaire. He's never going to need the money. Do you know what I mean? So you're kind of going here, lads. Look, I know the FEI is in trouble. It's you're in bankruptcy. Take back me contract. That's never going to happen. However,
Yeah.
the second part of going to Israel to get, to sell your fucking soul almost. He's going to say, "Oh, I'm not into politics. It's just football. It's me first big job." Surely you could have got your first big job anywhere else than fucking Israel.
Yeah.
Why would you want to? And not
But
only that, Maccabi Tel Aviv, they're nothing but a racist football club. Like, do your background checks. So the reaction to him giving out the caps has been really, really bad, which led to the manager and Nathan Collins being asked about it today. Was it the right thing to do? And they were just pushing blame to the FEI head honchos that arranged it. So that's why I just brought that up. And in the context of, there's going to be Sean Combs fans for over the years, and now they
yeah.
probably got into him, and now he's like, yeah, he's sitting in the Manhattan jail. He's not going to see the light of day ever again. And as Cassie mentioned in the interview, he's probably going to be found dead somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
And
just it's mad. Life is mad. Like, you can enjoy you're allowed enjoy sitcoms. Just don't hero. This whole heroing people, I think, is very it's very off-putting for me.
but it's a tale as old as time, right? And as far as things go back, there's been heroes and there's been, and it's
Yeah, the hero culture is a bit toxic, I think.
celebrity and hero have existed, ancient times well through to now, and it's on steroids now because it's in your pocket 24/7, and it's like, we're guilty of it. We fanboyed plenty of times over the years, including on this podcast, and
Absolutely.
as we've said plenty of times over the years, like, you learn and you evolve as a person, and sometimes you realize that, like, what I would say 10 years ago and what I would say now aren't the same.
No,
And I think people have to be allowed the space to have their opinion change, have their opinion grow. And part of
you're a
that
better
comes into
person if you change your opinion for the good.
Oh
anyway,
God.
right. It's been a long week, Mero. It's been a long
Been a
week.
long week.
If people want to check it out,
home tomorrow, so
I am home to
there
the
we
lovely
go.
Oksana, the dogs as well. Looking forward to it. If people
Deadly.
want to listen to it, they can check out WTSpod.com or search WTS Pod wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Podcast Republic. I'm everywhere. That's just WTS Pod. You know yourself. He's at Merrigamania. I'm at Danjo Murray. Check us out on YouTube and Instagram at WTS Pod. Huge thanks to Cassie again for joining us. Sorry for rambling. Sorry for waffling. I'm extremely tired and I'm dehydrated. Mero, until next week.
Clear eyes.
Full hearts.
Can't lose. Too sweet.